So I just finished watching the 2014 film John Wick, and I have to say, this movie is amazing. I love this movie a lot. And if you don't know what John Wick is about, I'm gonna give you a quick summary. So the self-titled film follows John Wick, who is an assassin, and he's on a mission to kill his former boss's son. And the reason why he's going to kill his former boss's son is because his son stole his car, and most importantly, killed his dog. Now, at first glance, that just might be a weird reason to go after an entire organization that you previously worked for. But to give you some more context and depth to this, is that John Wick left that criminal organization, that assassin lifestyle, to settle down with a woman that he loved, which he would later marry. And after putting his past behind him, his wife developed an illness, which, unfortunately took her life. Now John is alone and he's grieving his late wife. However, she had an idea that when she had passed on, she would have adopted a dog for John to spend time with because he needed someone and she wouldn't be there for him. So he got a dog. Now John is no longer alone and he has a constant reminder of his wife's love for him through the dog. He immediately becomes fond of the dog and they develop a bond together. And 2 days, I believe, after receiving the dog and having some form of hope in his life again, he decides to go on an outing with the dog. And on said outing, he encounters a group of Russian men led by a young, cocky individual. The individual takes a liking to John's car, which he then asks how much is for his car. John said it wasn't for sale. He then pets John's dog and says in Russian, "Everything has a price, bitch." And John responds in Russian, saying, "Not this one, bitch," and he drives off. Later that night, John's house is broken into and he's ambushed by a group of men. They beat him, and it is revealed that the men are the same Russian guys from earlier. And the reason why they have come is to steal his car. After beating up John and finding his keys, they decide that they're going to leave. However, John's dog was barking and was making a lot of noise, so they unnecessarily killed John's dog even after they got what they wanted. After stealing John's car and murdering his dog, the gang leader and his group goes to a mechanic who works for his father. The mechanic notices the car and asks where he got it from. The gang leader then responds saying, "Oh, he just stole it from this old guy." And then the mechanic asks the gang leader, "Is the guy dead?" The guy responds, "Oh, no, he's alive, but, we just killed his dog and some stuff. Nothing much." The mechanic then slaps the gang leader and tells him to leave his shop. The gang leader, in retaliation, says that "you work for my father," and start cursing him out. But at this point, the mechanic doesn't care. He just wants him to leave. A few hours pass and John wakes up and he goes to an old friend of his. The old friend of his is the mechanic that the gang leader went to a few hours earlier. And the mechanic informs that the gang leader is actually Vigo's son. Now, Vigo is John's former boss. In the past life, as I mentioned before, John was an assassin and he worked for a criminal organization, and the leader of that organization was Vigo. Vigo is then informed about his business partner, aka the mechanic, slapping his son, and he calls him and asks him why. The mechanic then explains to Vigo that Vigo's son stole from John Wick and murdered his dog. Vigo then understands the gravity of the situation and he begins to panic a little bit. He then contacts his son and explains to him who John Wick is and what John Wick does, and informs to him that the person he stole from is John Wick, who essentially pulled off an impossible task that granted their position of power. He then decides to contact John to try and talk him out of it. However, John responds with nothing. And that was all the confirmation Vigo needed to know that John Wick was going to come and kill his son for revenge. And the movie after this is John being dead set on killing Vigo's son, killing anyone and everything that comes in his way, because Vigo's son took everything away from John in that moment by killing his dog. Now, I'm gonna talk about the things that I liked about this movie. The first thing I liked about this movie was the fight scenes. The fight scenes for this movie were amazing. The way how they are able to do kung fu while using a gun is just beyond me, and it just looks very, very well done. Majority of the movie is just John killing people. Yup, you heard me. He's just killing people. And for some reason, I'm entertained throughout the entire movie because the way how he kills people are so funny sometimes, so creative, and also just very brutal. It's very, very interesting to see how he kills people. And what makes it even more impressive is that he hasn't killed anyone in half a decade. So he's still rusty. And he's just finding himself and everything again. But yeah, I 100% recommend this movie just because of the fight scenes alone. So if you're into action or anything like that, watch this movie. You're going to be very, very entertained. Another thing I liked about this movie was the plot. The plot of this movie Even though basic, it was very, very emotionally hooking, I would say. It's very, very deep, and you can understand John's motivations and why he's doing what he's doing. Because at the end of the day, he really loved his wife, and the only thing that was there for him was a dog, and the dog died. That just pushed him over the edge where he didn't want to have a normal life anymore because there's nothing to go back to. His wife is dead, his dog is dead. He has nothing to lose at this point. Another thing I loved about John Wick is the Continental. And to give you context, the Continental is a assassin organization, and the base of the organization is a hotel. And assassins check in and check out of the hotel because they kind of like live there. But for the most part, if they are in town or whatever, they check in and check out of the hotel for their missions. All the assassins and hitmen know each other as well. Like they're like kind of friends. And there's like, oh hey, I killed a few people today, blah blah. And it's like a regular Friday or Tuesday for them. So the dynamic of that is kind of interesting, and I find that entertaining. They also have their own form of currency. I think that is very, very interesting. So the currency that they have is in the form of a gold coin. And with the gold coin, they pay each other or they let people do things for them with the gold coin. It's just their own form of money. I think that's very, very interesting. And they also have this one rule where you can kill another assassin that's there at all. There's no killing allowed amongst each other, which is a very, very good thing because later in the movie, certain parts of the movie, that rule will be enforced or broken, I should say. It's very, very interesting. I'm not spoiling anything. But all things considered, John Wick was a very, very, very good movie to watch. There isn't anything about this movie to dislike. I don't find any flaw within the movie. The plot is done well. The fight scenes are good. The premise of the show is actually very, very good. You understand the character motivations and the character drives, and you also understand other character motivation and drives during the movie. And it's just a cat and mouse type of chase, and I really, really like that. So if I'm being very, very honest, I think John Wick is a 10 out of 10 movie, and I would 100% recommend it. I'm also going to be watching the other sequels to this movie because I heard John Wick 4 is out now. So follow me along my journey understanding the John Wick verse, and I really, really hope they expound on the money thing and the Continental organization because I'm really, really interested in that. But with that being said, that's my review for John Wick. I gave it a 10 out of 10, and I really hope that the future sequels are going to be just as good, if not better.